Well, good evening. It's Robert A. Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom. I'm a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, timeline coach, dream sculptor, published author of I Am Wisdom, Dissolving Ancient Anger, Dissolving Pleasing Others, and How Did I Teach Myself Fear? But tonight I'm talking about I stopped finding fault with myself. And it is, how do we find fault with ourselves, and that inner dialogue just keeps the faults and thinking we did everything wrong, rather than letting go of right and wrong and discovering that we followed a path that will open us up to new wisdom and new understanding of our talents. But the world runs on finding fault with everything. And I'm practicing my multitasking. I got a long ways to go on that. But anyway, tonight I discovered this on I moved back to Washington from Arizona, and today and on my way up here I discovered that finding fault with ourselves keeps all of the same things going on. Even in forgiveness and heal, how does that inner dialogue, the feelings and emotions, still keep the unrest and the unsettling comments and dialogue and all that going? But we find fault because we've been taught to find fault with everything in life. If you listen to the people talking on radio and talk radio and all this, it's everybody else's fault but mine. This is what finding fault, when you dissolve finding fault, you start being 100% accountable and responsible for wherever you're at and whatever's going on. And when you start taking the accountability and responsibility, you take the story out of your life and start writing the autobiography of how awesome, well, I use personal language, how awesome I am, but how awesome you are. And something else I've taken out of my life, and this is just, I took the word you out when I write personal growth, because you allows me to slip away and never look in the mirror of who I am. And that's what letting go and dissolving fault within myself allows me to let go of looking outside of myself. And I start looking at my true talents and how gifted I am. Because everybody's dreams is unique to them. It's going to seem weird and crazy to society. That's where we really expand out of, because finding fault is living inside society's rules. And society's just the education system. And everything we desire to experience is above what we know. So it's about ungoverning the inspiration within ourselves to move ourselves forward. And I now ask, how is finding fault with life kept the worldly landscape in ancestral anchors, ageless arrogance, and ancestral anger? Because the world is angry. We don't know why we get angry. We taught ourselves all this. We taught ourselves fear. We taught ourselves find fault to make the ego feel good. So when I stop finding fault with myself, I stop finding fault with the world. It's really about letting go of the cult of looking at the world as a negative place. The world is actually showing us where the wisdom where every individual wisdom is required to expand the world out of history and everything else we've gone. But we've been so willing to find fault because it makes us feel good. Have you ever been standing in a crowd and something went awry and then they blame one person? Those insecurity, fear, and fault finders will always blame the confident person because they're willing to take the responsibility and accountability for everything that went on. So as I open up to this letting go of finding fault, I discovered confidence and courage to allow myself to be different, to understand there's a gift in everybody. And it's a gift of entrepreneurialism, enterprising wise, and the guts to take the world out of the doldrums that we've been taught from the secret society. How does finding fault allow people to be easily controlled? And we find fault, we can always blame others, but nobody ever looks into the heart of themselves. Because it's a heart and soul. I hear with my heart eyes, I see with my soul ears, to be the seer of the debonair flare that I show the world, to open my eyes to the opportunities of life. The world has never ever had a chance because we're unwilling to see the opulent opportunities right in front of us. Because when you're finding fault and you got a clouded interior, well, when you're living from interior judgment rather than from interior inspiration, the world always folds back into it. And whenever you heal something and forgive somebody, is it 100% gone? For me, it never was. And I can't say for anybody else, but heal and forgiveness, there was always the lingering thoughts and the lingering remembrance of what went on, and I always had the blame and shame going. And the world lives in blame and shame, and the definition of blame is being lousy at managing everything or being lousy at managing everyday life. Because blame is a sham of shame that makes us feel weak on the inside. We have a low self-esteem. So when you get rid of the fault, you free adventurous utopian lure, tantalizing today's wisdom to move the world forward. But when you want to let go of forgiveness and heal and expand of appreciation, I appreciate myself, I appreciate my life events, I appreciate everybody that was involved. That gives everything value and allows you to rise above it and never be caught up in all the blame and the shame and everything that we always go through. And we were taught this in a school system. While we were tutored in a school system and taught myself to find fault because I think I'd get out of being responsible for the situation. So we got into this, well, I'll blame him, everything, but it's really was taught blame rather than being responsible and accountable, to be open to expand the world beyond what it is. And that is where the fault lines in us become our way of life. And our children, the kids of today, are really getting inundated with finding fault and getting out of it because of the media. If you listen to the media today, there isn't one person stands up and says, I did it. And something that allows the fault to leave me, my inner fault, I allowed everything in my life to occur. And it all occurred to expand me through life. And all the stuff that happened unsavory because I was afraid to listen to my inner self. Because my inner self tells me some stuff that is really off the wall. But it really was the paving of the highway for me to walk down and live the dreams of my life. But that fault, I really had a deep awakening, and we're afraid to be vulnerable. I was leaving Arizona, I was talking to a friend, she asked me how will you be more vulnerable? And that kind of caught me off guard. Then as I was coming up, as soon as I left Phoenix, I said, how will I be more vulnerable? And how will I experience vulnerability? That's something else. You want to experience the outcome, because the outcome, the journey through everything will be the experiences that allow you to experience the outcome you desire, to the accomplished outcomes. But when you're blaming somebody and you're all in the wrath of everything that's going on, you're kind of frustrated. What goes on in your inner dialogue and in your thinking process? You can never think and be of inspiration at the same time. When you allow inspiration to flow, it overcomes the left side of the brain and opens up the brain power and the brain prowess of the right side. You become you become very innovative to expand through life. And I talk a lot about that, but if change, heal, and create transformation for me kept me in the fault lines, kept me inside the faults, in the vault of faults, rather than moving forward. But as soon as I started using expressing enterprise, expand enterprise, energize, and experience, my life began to open up and I become unattached. And I read something on the internet today is turn your back on defeat. Never turn your back on defeat. Walk through the defeat because that's a daring, enterprising fervor, expanding acumen, tantalizing today's new experiences. Defeat and failure are actually the doors to success and the life you desire, because you got to go through the turmoil to boil the oil out and get the high octane magnificence to move yourself forward. And that's what letting go and dissolving faults allow you to do. They allow you to let go of being inside the blame of yourself, because when you're finding fault, you're blaming yourself and feeling the shame within yourself. It's really about expanding above that and getting into the inspiration and innovations and intuition. And it really comes down to trusting your heart and soul and hearing what they have to tell you to move your life forward. So as you move your life forward and let go of the faults, you free audacious utopian lure today, allowing yourself to move forward in life, because this world is so locked and blocked and it's everybody else's fault but mine. That is where we're locked. That's where the world is stuck, especially in the powers to be. And we've been taught to push blame and shame and everything, because a blaming, shaming society is easier to control than a society that's free and willing to experience entrepreneurship and be the person that moves their life forward. It's called expansionism, self-expansionism. It's spirit expanding life, feeling energized Xanadu, because it's all occurs inside me. Anything with ism is inside me. I see me free to experience the dream rather than try to live the dream. And it's being of and above rather than in the dim of life. And that is where we move forward in life. But the fault, we've been so taught to be, it's my fault, it's their fault. No, I'm responsible and I'm accountable for this. But that is the blessing of moving forward, because when you're accountable and responsible, that gives you the omnipotent power to expand out of any situation. And you never have to remember anything when you're accountable and responsible. Blame and shame, I have to remember. My memory isn't that good, so it's just easier to do it all at once, because a lie never dies. The truth sets me free forever. And the lie will rise up the instant I don't need it at all in my life. Because a lie always comes to fruition when you're in the worst throes of your life that's ready to expand you. So it's just easier to be accountable and responsible, free of fault, moving your life forward in a better way. So as I went through this, and this is going to be a chapter in a book called I Stopped Finding Fault Within Myself Today. That's a new book that's being written as we speak. But how have we taught ourselves to live in the past through finding fault with others? And how have I had to ask myself, how did I find fault, yet I fell into the same situations and never moved myself forward? So it's the fault we find that keeps running the inner dialogue, the thoughts, and the remembrances that keep the memories of everything that went awry, because everything went awry because we were afraid to see the wisdom, intuition, and the innovation of chaos, turmoil, and even tragedy. Tragedy is something that's going to happen in life, and so is chaos and challenge. But challenges and chaos, they are in my life to show me where I'm blocked inside, and really to release the faults that I have within me. And the fault I always put upon me was my own thinking and my own way of life, because I had to be right, I had to be perfect, the world was wrong. That is the gong show of a person's life. So when you let go of being in the fault, you start opening up a futuristic adventure for yourself. And that's the thing we've let go of in this world, is the pioneering spirit that we all encompass. When you stop finding fault with yourself, you'll open up that pioneering spirit to see the true blue self. And out of the blue comes bold, lively, utopian energy to expand through life. That is what this is all about. It's about being willing to be above the fray that we've been taught through society and through the school system and many other things. But it's really freeing the internal, liberates the external, and really makes the eternal free for people to enjoy. So as I opened up to myself to all this, I really began to look at how I found fault with myself in everything I've ever done. And that is where the fear, the anger, the frustration, everything become embedded in me. Because I embedded everything, I allowed everything. So it's easier just to appreciate everything and expand out of it. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Rob, Barbara, Lori, Rusty, Thomas, and Everton for being on the show. I'll be here next Tuesday night, and we're going to talk about my book, Dissolving Pleasing Others. And I thank you, and I am Robert A. Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom. I'm a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, radio show host, published author, and dream sculptor. And I want to thank everybody for being here, and good night.